Joining me now is Dinesh D'Souza, conservative commentator, filmmaker. Dinesh, the blacklist. I mean, you've been writing about this for decades. The left has always had one.
They have, and this is a tyrannical impulse. It's so ironic because they keep accusing Trump of being a tyrant, but ultimately these are people who, if they had their wish, they would ostracize their opponents, they would have them fired from their jobs, they would have them digitally censored, and they cheer when that happens. And who knows, they might next be willing to imprison them. The historian David Blight from Yale recently spoke about Trump and the GOP as the new Confederacy. Now, this was a very poisonous accusation. Think of it. First of all, a member of the party of the Confederacy is accusing the leader of the party of Lincoln of being a Confederate. But I think that what he was trying to do is sow the kind of hatred that makes Trump supporters into enemies of the country. And then this licenses, in the name of tolerance, believe me, a kind of wave of anger and retribution against these people because they are seen not as critics, not as dissenters, not as people who are wrong, who need to be persuaded, but as enemies who have to be taken out.
Yeah, and Dinesh, I think it also opens the door to physical attacks, too. Because, the left is always claiming that right-wing rhetoric, inspires this or that group. But what about their rhetoric? I mean, if you're truly like Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, or whatever their, comparison is of the day, then, gosh, they're like mass murderers, conservatives who supported Trump. I mean, that's where this goes, logically.
Well, I think in the old communist states, it was simply the state that carried out, ultimately, the recriminations, the violence. But in this case, the left seems to be counting on a kind of alliance of media, digital moguls, corporate sponsors to work together with the left so that ultimately they can expose people, target them, get them kicked off and made into public non-persons. And at the end of the day, who knows, unleash the deep state against them, perhaps.
Well, Dinesh, they're already doing this, though, right? They've already waged their war at academia. I mean, you're not going to get a promotion in most schools if you're a well-known Trump supporter. You're not going to get tenure in most schools. You're not going to get an elevation in the military, probably, in some cases, if you're known to believe in certain traditional values. So a lot of this is happening, but she's just being really vocal about it.
Absolutely. I saw in my own case years ago, sitting across from these Obama prosecutors, that if they could, they would have locked me up for 10 years on a minor technicality because they didn't see me as a critic. They saw me ultimately as an enemy. And that's the kind of poisonous mentality that the left is putting into the public discourse, even justifying it, justifying it in academia, justifying it in media, and ultimately it carries over to the government.